Hi everyone. So today we'll go through a couple questions from AGK together. I think I've prepared around 7. So these are the most recent questions seen in the last 30 days. So if you're preparing for the exams or just looking for an indication of what AGK is like, I think this will be a perfect opportunity to take a look. So without any further ado, let's jump into the first question. During a turn with high bank angle and no altitude change, what will an aircraft experience? So as you turn, the lift component will be shifted sideways and you will essentially lose some of it. So if you do not deflect the elevator, the aircraft will start losing the altitude. So if the question indicates that there's no altitude change during a turn, that means that we are adding some of that elevator back pressure, which also increases the load factor. With load factor, we also have increased stress and strain on the wings because these are the so-called G's. So the aircraft essentially is experiencing more weight on the wings, and you will also feel it very visibly in the cockpit. And this will be the correct answer. So going to question number 2. In comparison with the use of conventional breathed air pneumatic system, an aircraft fitted with an electrical pneumatic system has. So a bleed air system essentially is a system that takes some of the hot air from the engines and uses it to heat the air for the cabin or for passenger comfort. It is using the air that's already in the engine, which means it takes some of its energy. And of course, if the system takes the energy, then the aircraft will lose some of its performance. This can translate into decreased range and decreased um, performance generally. Let me read the question. Increased range, I don't know. Yes, so in case the system is electrical, like in some of the newer aircraft, which I believe that, for example, Boeing 787 Dreamliner has, the aircraft fitted with the electrical bleeders, electrical pneumatic system will have increased range and more efficient transfer of energy in the aircraft, not taking anything from the engines itself. Now question number 3, a bus bar. So think about a bus bar as a box that can transfer the energy, the electrical energy for different sources. So you can plug in similarly to your home. However, this one is a little bit more elaborate and technically advanced. It essentially distributes the power for different components of the aircraft. You'll see that every aircraft will have more than one buses, mainly for redundancy and safety. However, its main job is to distribute the energy, the electrical power, maybe it's a better word, between different systems of the aircraft. In the next question, the hydraulic device, which functionally is comparable to a diode in an electrical circuit, is A. So a diode is essentially something that lets the current through, but doesn't let it back. It's like a one-way tunnel. And in case of hydraulic systems, this will be a one-way valve or a check valve. In this case, you'll see it used on a daily basis once you start flying. For example, once you set the parking brake in your aircraft, it turns on the check valve, so you can still pump the brakes. You can still pump the hydraulic fuel through the system. However, it will not come back, so the brakes will maintain pushed in. Again, this is the correct answer. So question number 5. What is the purpose of the rebreather bag on passenger oxygen masks? So as you know, the oxygen masks and the oxygen system for the passengers inside of the aircraft is a system that once it goes down, you need to pull on it because otherwise the oxygen doesn't flow. This is usually in commercial aviation, the chemically generated oxygen systems are used. You can think about it a little bit like a candle, so you have to pull on it, and then there's a chemical reaction that as a byproduct produces oxygen. It lasts for around 15 minutes, and there is a little bag in front which mixes the oxygen with the air from the outside. And this rebreather bag, so the bag at the end or close to your face, is there so that it can mix the oxygen that's flowing from the system with the air that you are exhaling or the one that's coming from the sides. And this system is of course not pressurized, remember, for the exams, and also remember that it lasts for about 15 seconds and it cannot be stopped once it starts going. Question number 6. One of the purposes of the flight deck window heating on large commercial airplanes is to. So of course it prevents the icing, however it doesn't necessarily de-ice the windows. However, the main purpose of heating of the windows on large commercial jets, surprising me, is to increase its strength, mainly for impact. So how does it do it? As in, there are some filings in between of the windows, which as they heat, they make the windows a little bit more flexible, which then in effect increases its impact properties. So for example, if there's a bird strike or very big hail particles hitting the window, this heating can improve the chances of the window not breaking apart. This, I remember, was quite surprising for me when I was studying AGK. However, remember, for the exam purposes and in the future, that the heated window increases the impact strength. And lastly, the question number 7. During level flight at a constant cabin pressure altitude, the cabin outflow valves are. So this is also a little bit tricky because we of course know that in commercial and big jets, the cabins are pressurized. However, surprisingly, they are not pressurized by means of closing the entire system and shutting out the air. The air is constantly flowing, so you have a constant inflow of air and you have constant outflow of air. And these outflow valves are the ones that control the pressure inside the cabin, so they are always slightly open. If you need lower pressure, they open more. If you need higher pressure, they will open slightly less. The only button that will actually fully close the system and make the aircraft airtight will be the ditching button, which will shut off and close all the holes inside of an aircraft in case there is a water landing. But the outflow valves, which are used for depressurization, will be partially open throughout the flight. And again, this is the correct answer. So this is everything for today. Just a few questions from AGK. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope to see you again during a next question walkthrough. Have a great day. Bye.